Lonesome Lands podcast special report, right, Shad?
Right.
Um, we're here with Keely Covello of American Unwon, right? It's AmericanUnwon.com.
Yep. America Unwon. You got it.
America Unwon. Sorry.
Hmm.
If you just want to explain kind of who you are and what you do, just give people a refresher if they haven't seen you.
Sure. Well, thank you guys for having me. It's an honor. I love listening to your show and good to chat with you always. I'm Keely. I'm from Northern California. I live in Southern California now. I grew up in a ranch community. My parents are both large animal vets. Um, and I wanted to be a journalist pretty young. I worked in DC for a minute. Jim and I talked about that a lot. I think the first interviews of Jim's background as well. Um, but my favorite stories to report were stories from my hometown and issues in the ranching community, which when I went to DC, I was kind of surprised. They were very unaware that anything was really happening out west. They
Mm.
were shocked to hear that there was news out there. So that kind of started me on the path to get out of DC and get back to this. And um, I started my Substack just over a year ago. The project's called Unwon, as Jim said, and it's kind of focused on Western issues. I talk a lot about California because I'm here and we've got all kinds of stories all the time. It's always a mess here in California, but yeah, focus on the West, ranching, food sovereignty, and some stories adjacent to that, not related to ranching, just kind of anything that has to do with folks who kind of work to clothe and feed and protect and fuel our country. So that's my that's my beat, I guess.
Keely, how did you come up with the name of Unwon?
I had an original meaning that I wanted to do kind of these profiles of folks who were working in Western industries that maybe didn't get a lot of coverage in mainstream media. I always thought young kids, like the girls and guys I went to school with, they chose a different career path. And I went to college in LA and I just saw a lot of people who didn't even know that these careers were still an option. So I thought, the West isn't one. There's all of this opportunity and adventure that you can have out here. But as I got deeper into the reporting and saw how many attacks are happening on the West, which you guys cover so well, it showed me that the West isn't one in the sense that it's still being attacked
Mm.
by,
Wow.
our elites, and it's kind of
Mhm.
the tip of the spear of a lot of the freedom issues that we need to focus on most. So, has a double meaning.
Wow, yeah. That's kind of bone chilling. Woo. And so your issue since that time has been the dams in your hometown, home
Mhm.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, can you like give a timeline of what happened and what's happened since? And
Where I grew up in Potter Valley in Northern California, we have these two dams that provide water to a pretty populated, famous area. I mean, Sonoma County, people know Sonoma for wine tourism and everything. So it's kind of a high end, famous tourism region in California. But where I grew up was not like that. It's cattle ranching and pretty rugged and remote. And it's where the water system starts. And for the last few years, it's been under attack. The company that owns it is called PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, which people might know from the Aaron Brockovich
yeah,
movie. They've got a troubled history. They're
yeah,
not a great company.
yeah, they've been
And
in the
I,
news a lot since we talked, right? They a
yeah,
lot going on with the Palisades fire, and I don't know all the details, but
yeah, well, California's a mess, so it's
right.
kind of all all the same thing. I don't know if they were the company behind that Paradise Fire, if you guys remember that
Mhm.
horrible fire in Northern California. I think it
Hmm.
was 2019. It was a few years back, but there were 85 people lost their life. It was this really horrific
It's
wildfire.
terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a movie, they just put out a movie, Matthew McConaughey movie about it that talked about PG&E a little bit. They didn't really get into it, but PG&E's equipment malfunctioned and they ended up pleading guilty to 84 counts of manslaughter in that fire. So, and right after that, Gavin Newsom passed a bailout bill where they didn't really have to cover um, much in the way of the damage that they caused to all these poor communities. And there's people I think that are still unpaid. Meanwhile, PG&E's execs get these big old bonuses, and they are huge political donors in California.
Mhm.
Everybody's on their donor roll. I think they were Gavin Newsom's second highest donor at one point. They've sponsored his wife as a gender identity nonprofit, and they're big donors of that. They're producers on some of her films that she's made about gender identity. So just a little a little nasty all
Wow.
around, really. Yeah.
Jeez.
A glimpse into California right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's California in a nutshell,
well, not
basically.
all of California. I guess we shouldn't stereotype the whole state, right? Because you come from a good community that the bad people are trying to destroy, right? And so
That's
with the
true.
dams, like one thing that I've always thought about, like they're trying to take out these dams. Like, what is the reasoning? Like, what do they say?
Well,
Like,
yeah, they have a different story depending on what the context is. They'll say it's old and aging. It's a seismic risk. It's built over a fault line. Everything in California is built over a fault line. They just did a report. They audited the state and they listed the most dangerous dams. And these dams, they're called Scott Dam and Cape Horn Dam, just the Potter Valley Project, kind of for short. They're not on that list. They're really not. I'm trying to dig down and see what the real seismic risk is. As far as I can tell, it was one of these NGOs that you guys talk about. Like this one's called Friends of the Eel, but it's just another fish over people NGO here in California. And they commissioned some seismic report. They suddenly got really interested in the safety of everybody living downstream of this dam. I think they just want the dam out for fish habitat. And that seems to be what a lot of this is based on. So seismic issues is one. They say it's unprofitable. Well, again, you got PG&E is this massive company. They're not a private company. They're regulated by the state. And Gavin Newsom appoints all of the regulators to this board that oversees PG&E. Same as the company in the Palisades fire, as I understand it. So, that's all pretty incestuous over there. I think the real reason, in my opinion, is they have a lot of these NGOs for years and years that have been suing PG&E because of the fish, saying that the dams are hurting the fish habitat, saying that we need to rip out these dams and let the Eel River flow free to restore the salmon. And they get a lot of money on the back end. I've been talking about that a little bit. All these deals coming out from California Department of Fish and Wildlife writing grants to these NGOs that sued to get the dams out. Just it's all messy and there's money involved. There's a tribe that's getting money for water rights that they really don't have rights to this water. They're not at the mouth of the river. They're not, a primary tribe on the river, but they're a useful group for these NGOs and politicians to say, see, we're giving money to the tribe and restoring their rights. And there's other tribes impacted that are kept out of the conversation. So that's what I think is really going on. There was an article in 2024 where Gavin Newsom, who's trying to become everybody's problem, he talked about how this dam removal is part of his salmon restoration strategy. And he promised that he would get these dams out in 18 months. So sometimes when you talk to people, they say this is a private business decision. This company doesn't want these dams anymore. They have a right to relinquish the dams. Sure. But they want to rip them out. They don't just want to leave them and stop producing hydroelectric power. They want to rip them out and they want to charge us for it. We're going to pay for the cost of ripping it out. And Gavin Newsom on the, from the other side of his mouth is taking credit for it. And we all know how, as we just talked about, how their relationship is pretty suspect. So seems to me like he wants to run in 2028 and he wants to be a green governor. And he wants to appeal to that left-wing base in California that really likes fish and whatever else. And this is one of his strategies to do it, is to rip these dams out. He doesn't care about the rural people impacted. And his town in Marin, he'll figure out water for them. That's no problem. He doesn't care about the ranching communities.
And meanwhile, you said 600,000, it would impact 600,000 people in the small towns and rural communities in that area.
Yes. I'm hearing 750, some people say.
Right.
Well,
and
Keely,
so, I remember on the last podcast, I searched like the population of Wyoming, and I think it's right around 600,000. It's the entire state of Wyoming. But what was interesting, I didn't go back and watch that podcast that we did, but I can remember thinking, like, as we were talking about it, that's March of 2025. So Rollins had been in there for like a month, right? Or maybe a few weeks. And so the USDA, the only USDA that you had dealt with like on this issue or even thought about was the Biden administration. And it seemed pretty hopeless. Like I mean, you were trying to, you wanted to fight this battle, but it was like uphill doesn't even kind of describe it at that time, right? Like it was like these dams were coming out. And I think I asked something about that. Like, what are the odds that we get it stopped or something? And it's just like, well, it's, the plans are moving forward, and you just kind of have to do what you do. But so from there, like, uh, you've been reporting on it, right? And so you gained traction at some point, and how did that go?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember talking with you about that. And I just thought, man, at least we I got to get this story out so we don't go down without a fight and somebody remembers. And down the road when they say, "Oh, well, this, everybody lost their water because of XYZ reason." At least there's a record. This is why these
hmm
towns are ghost towns, because of your decision to rip the dams out. And they've
Right.
got to at least get that in black and white. And yeah, I remember that, Jim, we didn't really know who Rollins was. I didn't know a whole lot about her. I tried to read everything I could about her, but I was trying to think. I don't, maybe she was on one of your short lists. I really didn't know much
Oh,
about
we had
her
no
at
idea
all.
when she got
Mm-mm.
announced.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
no idea.
and
But
I was trying to look more into Department of Interior. I thought maybe they would be the ones to help. And I still haven't really heard from, well, I have heard from some folks at Department of Interior since we started this. There's Karen Bud Fallon's over there. She's amazing. And she's totally on the right side of this. But Rollins has definitely been the most vocal, and she's gone out of her way. And I think, it's, I wrote all my Substack pieces and blew up as much as I could. But I always knew that the thing that is going to, if there's anything that's going to get the story out there, it's going to be just ranchers talking about what's happening to them. And so we kind of got a camera out and went to these sweet neighbors of mine. Some of them are very elderly, talking about losing their water in the middle of the summer and, worrying about whether they'd have to cut their call herds. Some of them were trucking water in for 2.5 months because they lost household water. And just getting that story on camera. There was a pear farmer that I filmed as well. That was really what helped us get the story out there. It was not me. It was just these guys kind of talking about what they do, which I think the three of us have seen that impact, that American consumers really do care about where their food comes
Yeah.
from and producers. And so just hearing them talk about that was, I think, the thing that made the story pick up a little bit of steam.
So
right.
Keely, with some of those farmers, well, let's get past the urban users of the water, but is some of that water, like prior appropriated water rights, owned by farmers and ranchers?
Yeah, that's another piece of this. I mean, there's so much going on. There's a lawsuit that some of the farmers and ranchers have initiated, just trying to stop this, trying to stall this. I think there was a little bit of an attitude of like, this can't possibly happen. And I got to, feed cows and cut hay. And
Yeah.
there's no way we're going to lose our
Right.
water. So there was a lot of just denial, which I totally understand. And just thinking something will intervene. There's no way that they're just going to take away our water. And as it became more and more real, people started to fight back. And there's a lawyer I'm talking to looking into some of the water rights, which, man, that's a confusing world. But I know
Oh
that
yeah.
there's like, oh boy, but there's this pre-existing Spanish land grants and all this
Mhm.
stuff that's coming into play where that could get pretty interesting too, because I think these guys just thought there's nobody that's going to fight back and we can do whatever we want. And as people are digging into this more, pulling up some of these issues, they may run into some legal hurdles exactly like that, Shad.
Yeah.
Going
The
back to
water.
those videos, that
Yeah.
kind of opened everyone's eyes, right? You're in their backyard and they're talking about, yeah, but they actually shut the water off, right? Like they were
Yeah, they
already
did.
shutting water off last summer. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they're supposed to keep it. There's a biological opinion that they have to keep a certain amount of water for the salmon or something like this. And um, anyhow, the PG&E requested FERC, this Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in DC. They asked to cut the water back in, I think, February of last year, and FERC did not give them approval until August. So all of a sudden, PG&E cut flows, and you know how California is, which I actually think a lot of people on the East Coast, this is maybe a little bit of a learning curve for them. We don't have another backup. I get a lot of comments like, just dig a well. Well, you can't dig a well. The
Right.
groundwater runs dry.
Yeah.
If you're not irrigating, there's no water. We're not getting any rain between, and all the summer months. It's a Mediterranean climate, so it's very, very dry. That's why our forefathers built these dams and redirected a little
Right.
bit of water from this river in the first place. You guys know about this, but people on the East Coast, it's like, I think there's a little
hmm
incredulity of like, we'll figure something else out and dig a deeper well. Water is not a problem in Virginia and DC. It's a whole different world out here. So
Right.
yeah. So when they cut those flows, it was like, well, now our pear trees are going to die, our cattle are going to die. One of the elderly couples I interviewed since that video, their domestic well went completely dry. I was telling Secretary Rollins this in the meeting last week. They have been trucking water, and he's 89, and he's hooking up
Wow.
his truck and trucking water in so he can, run his sink. My dad was having him come over to our house and use our water. My parents' water is on the other side of the valley, so they didn't get hit yet. And we had a good rain year last year. It could have been a lot worse. But a bunch of families just totally, their wells went completely dry in just the 2 months until we got rain, or I think it was like August to the first rains we started getting in September, October. They were already losing their water, and that's going to be the future if
Could you
these dams are
imagine
ripped.
turning your faucet on and just nothing's there? I mean, that's must be what
Awful.
happened. That's mind blowing.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's
Yeah,
awful.
and you have animals to keep alive, and I mean, it's
Yeah.
unreal.
Well,
But
can I
go
ask a
ahead.
question? So I'm trying to understand, like PG&E is a energy company, and they
Yeah.
do they use these hydroelectric dams to produce energy?
They
So
did.
they
Hmm.
did, but they don't now.
So this is an interesting piece of it. And this is alleged. I can't exactly confirm it because I don't think anybody will let me into the powerhouse, but I'm hearing that there's a transformer blew in 2021. And so they said, oh, this power project is dead and we've got to offline it. And in California, if it's under a certain size, they don't count hydropower as green energy, which is
Oh,
ridiculous. Yeah. So, and it's just under that. I mean, like barely under that threshold. So it's not green energy. So they've left it offline and they never brought the project back. But what I've heard is there's a backup transformer. They could have flipped a switch and kept it running. They just want it out. They didn't want to get sued anymore. I think Gavin Newsom wants it out. In my opinion, there was some interesting timing stuff with that Paradise Fire and that bailout
yeah.
bill. That same year, they said, "Hey, we're also going to take these dams out." By the way, um, and that was after a closed door meeting with a bunch of Newsom staffers and all these bigwig lawyers in San Francisco or whatever. And after that meeting, they got their bailout bill and the dams were going to get ripped out. So just, looks pretty shady
Wow.
to me.
Yeah, it looks
Right.
really shady. It doesn't even make sense if that's
No.
one of the resources of power, why they'd even, so it seems to me like it's political kowtowing. And then you have all these complex issues. I feel like somewhere in this, just in this short conversation that we've had, is the stolen land movement through the
Mm.
tribes and the ENGOs and all of that. And it gets really mixed up and muddled. And I actually am sitting here thinking about the Spanish land grants as being perhaps the savior here.
You might be right.
I don't
I
know.
do need, no, you really might be right. I got to dig into that a little bit more. I've had a pending interview with a lawyer and needed to do for a while now, but he's telling me that these communities that have prior water rights, they have full right to press that issue. And the downstream communities like Sonoma and Marin, these wealthier communities, they might be in for a world of hurt when they realize that they don't get
Mm,
any water coming through because of these prior. So you might be completely right about that, Shad. And I think too, it's just I just don't think they thought anybody would fight back. I think they thought
right.
they could do whatever they want. They can use this tribe to push through.
Mhm.
And when I came on with you, Jim, last year, I think we talked about that documentary I did, which is a little bit of a side note, but on the marijuana problem and the cartels on some of these tribes. And that's the same tribe that is getting these water rights. So pretty ironic. We're going to cut water for these farmers and give money to a tribe that is really suffering from cartel presence in their community and the massive illegal cannabis grows. That's what their water is used for against the will of a lot of the tribal members who I've talked to who don't like what's going on. So just really pretty dirty all around, a lot of money.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
To get back into that fight, you posted the videos of the
Yeah.
neighborhood, I guess, right? Losing the
Yeah.
water, and then like what at what point, I guess, did the USDA get involved, or how were you contacted, or how did that work?
I heard from some folks that you both know at America First Policy Institute. They were interested. There's a AFPI in California. They helped amplify it a bit. So they were talking about it. I think Mike Garcia is a former congressman in California. He wrote an op-ed with Tate Bennett, who was the rural policy chair. So that helped us get a little more traction because, again, nobody in DC was talking about this. And then at one point, someone from our community had a connection and kept requesting a meeting with DOI. I think they actually maybe just went through the portal, but they finally were able to get a meeting with some folks at DOI. We told them about this, kind of just went up the chain from there. They connected us with different people. The one thing I've heard repeated over and over in all these meetings is we're trying to find somebody who can help us in the Trump administration. They keep telling us Trump administration doesn't tear dams out. We may not have jurisdiction. This is a California thing. We'll do what we can, but we don't tear dams out. We're not on the side of tearing dams out. So they've given us, there's been a lot of really good people we've just met with who've tried to point us toward this person, that person in the administration who can help us get the story out. And then they've the folks at USDA filed to be a party in the process with FERC just in September recently here. Or actually it was December, excuse me, so very recently. And that really helped us because this dam is located in the middle of national forest land. And that's the last piece of this that I think is interesting with these big fires we've had. Two of the biggest fires in California state history both happened in Potter Valley, and they were both put out with water from the Potter Valley project. So if this dam is taken out, there's not going to be that lake anymore, no water to fight fires in a super fire prone area. So I think USDA feels because they have this national forest land, they have some status to say, hey, we need this water to protect our forest land out in California. So that's another piece of this, but
yeah, that's a great.
It's complicated.
Piece, actually.
Yeah, sure. But, and so I guess, I mean, I don't want to get off track here, but like when we talked, not long after that, the whole mod issue in South Dakota kind of blew up, I guess. And, you were a big part of that. Reported on this ranching couple that were, had been like arrested, really. I mean, they hadn't been hauled off in cuffs, but had been indicted. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Mm-hmm.
They were facing prison time because of a fence that they had never moved, and someone at the Forest Service said that it was on Forest Service land. And you reported on it and were a big part of breaking that story. And
well, you guys were huge on that story. That was a big deal. I mean, that was, yeah.
Yeah. But do you think that was kind of where, like you got your foot in the door with Even America First and all of that stuff because that was a USDA issue and they came in and kind of, they dropped all the charges and helped those people? Did that help kind of?
That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I would say so. Maybe you guys have perspective on that. I think that was the first time I thought, okay, Brooke Rollins is the real deal. She's paying attention to this story I thought that would get fixed when Trump got elected. I remember covering it the year before under the Biden administration. And I thought, man, if Biden wins again, this poor family is in for it. And when Trump got elected, I thought, okay, great. Somebody will rectify this. Surely this is not going to continue. And then when I heard from the family, Heather's parents again, later in 2020, last year, beginning of last year, and they said, we haven't heard from anybody and we're about to go to trial. That was very troubling. And I just thought, man, I hope Brooke Rollins and these new appointees are as passionate as they say they are about farmers and ranchers. This would be a great example for them to pick up. Yeah. Anyway, you all were there. You were very involved. Right. But I personally, I'm curious if you felt the same. That was just so hopeful that they actually stepped in that press conference and they did something. I thought, wow, that seemed like, I remember talking with you on the phone that day, Shad, and just feeling like, okay, they are listening to these stories and they care. And they've picked up a few since then. The Henry case in New Jersey, we had another thing here in California where Gavin Newsom's board is trying to redistribute farmland. And Secretary Rollins jumped on that. There's the King family up in Washington. They wrote a letter.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes,
yep.
Exactly.
There's a bunch of them and they keep popping up all over the nation too. And, we got to work on all of them because they all matter. Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But to get back to,
and I was listening to,
go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, just quickly, I was listening to your episode the other day where you talked about some of the holdovers at the Forest Service, which I know the
Mhm.
mods ran into, and
Mhm.
that's definitely still an issue, right? You can't clean house on 100,000 employees and get everybody on the same page ideologically. So I worry about that with our dam issue. It's not like just because the folks in charge are aligned, it's still a battle through these bureaucracies. But
Well,
Mhm.
absolutely, and it's still a states versus federal battle too, which you have that
right.
mixed in there, and that gets complicated. So, and I think that's what we're seeing right now with the King Ranch, where Secretary Rollins said, "Hey, we're going to pull the funding," and the state doubles down, right? So that's kind of where we're at on that too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gavin loves a chance to grandstand right now. He's all about getting those headlines at the moment. So,
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that kind of working against you, I suppose. He's probably, you talk about somebody that wants to double down against Trump. Like nobody probably wants to more than him.
For sure.
Um, but to get back, like Rollins was retweeting like your articles and
mhm.
the information on the dams is kind of where it started, right? And then as her involvement. And then you were able to meet with her last week. There was a press conference in Los Angeles, right? All
Yep.
around this issue. How did you get from kind of her retweeting your stuff to getting there and putting on the press conference and talking about how USDA is really kind of all in on this fight now?
That was crazy. I mean, that happened very quickly. She reached out.
Oh, and
She
not
had met
to, I
with
want to interrupt you just to let
a
people
place.
know
Yeah.
you had a baby somewhere in there too,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yes. Maybe that's why
so
it felt extra crazy.
yeah, not to
Yeah,
bury
it
the
could
headline
be.
there, but you have a 3 week old baby now too.
Uh,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
exactly.
Go
Yeah.
ahead with
Hopefully. Yeah, well, he was born right after that. So we heard from Secretary Rollins. She met with some people from Potter Valley, in a Zoom call. Another person who's been very instrumental is Aubrey Betancourt. She's the chief of the NRCS. She's amazing. She is like a dynamo. She's from Fresno here and like background in almonds and farming. So
yeah.
she really gets California water, which is a gnarly thing to try to understand, but she gets it and she has been amazing. So she's been really involved with us. Obviously, Secretary Rollins is pretty busy, got a lot on her plate, but she did
Sure.
take time to meet with some folks on Zoom from our community, and just encourage them and kind of listen to what was going on. And I heard from the USDA team right before Christmas, and they had this think it's called it was the American Farm Bureau Convention. It was in Anaheim, and they had that coming up. And Secretary Rollins was flying out to speak at this event. And they California's so big. I feel like that's another disconnect on the East Coast. It's like
Yeah.
California, it's right around the corner. It was like a 9-10 hour drive from Potter Valley. But they said, would anybody be willing to drive down and meet with Secretary Rollins if we could make time for that while she's out here? She doesn't make it to California too often. That's quite a flight. Um, and I said, well, I will certainly try. So I started texting people, and everybody I asked wanted to be there. They all made the drive quickly, short notice. And I said, I probably can't go because I was due to have this baby. My due date was December 18th, and they wanted to meet last week. What was it? January 12th. And so I thought, I don't know where I'm going to be at. So it's in good hands if I can't make it. I'm not worried about it. But I was planning on kind of not being there. And then last minute, I was able to go. But it was a whirlwind. And everybody I asked came out. We had about 12 people. I think I could have filled the room. I was trying to be respectful, keep it, not a total circus. But
Mhm.
I think everybody was really grateful because, again, nobody's listened to this issue, and all of these farmers and ranchers were so grateful that she would come out and talk to them. And so it was a quick little turnaround, but I think it was a very hopeful thing just to sit with her and to be able to talk about what's going on. And then she
Mhm.
gave us her press conference after to try to force the press to pay attention as well.
Right. Yeah. You got to be up there on stage with her. So as far as the meeting though, did she give like details like I mean I know as far as the amount of hope we have compared to last year, it's a big
Yes.
difference, but like going forward, did she give any ideas on like the plan or how they're going to go about this, trying to help you out?
Yeah, she kind of said, she'll anything she can do. She wanted to hear what can I do? Who can I call? How can I help? And we had some suggestions and ideas. I think a lot of people in the community would like the federal government to take over these dams and just kind of get them out of the hands of California or the locals. I know that's kind of a long shot. I think it would take an act of Congress, but it's vital water infrastructure. And Trump has, I mean,
Yeah.
we're about a year out from the Palisade fire, and Trump said he wanted to turn the water on in California. That's something he talked about on Joe Rogan before he was elected.
Hmm.
So that's been an issue for him. And this is one of those, he talked about turn on the spigot. This is one of those spigots. If it gets turned off permanently, it is never coming back. So I think that would be the hope, is that they could take it over in some way, whether that's an act of Congress or some kind of, you know, whatever that looks like. I think that would be a hope. I do know too. Well, I've heard through the grapevine there might be some interested parties. That was another story PG&E was telling, was nobody wants this dam, nobody wants to buy it. So what can we do? We got to take it out. Our hands are tied. I don't know if that's true. I don't know that they ever really advertised it,
Hmm.
because certainly that's a pretty valuable thing to have, especially in this day and age where we're trying to find
Absolutely.
energy for all these data centers and everything. You're going to take a perfectly viable hydroelectric plant out right now? That doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah.
Someone would want this. So,
Yeah.
Well, and I'm originally from Colorado, and of course the Rocky
yep.
Mountains are right in the central part of Colorado, and we have a lot of snowfall, and there's water is the biggest issue, like prior appropriated what rights, who's selling, where's it going, where's all the water going. The Nebraska and Kansas sued the state of Colorado for the tributary rights to the Republican and Arkansas River, and it's just a really big deal. So I remember in 2000, I think 22 and 23, when you guys had so much snow in the Sierra Nevadas, right? And it was
Yeah.
covering up houses, but there wasn't any water in these lakes. Had been so dry. And then all of a sudden you get these big rains and these snowpack starts to melt and the lakes fill up almost overnight, but they're bypassing and going to the ocean. Was that true, Keely?
Oh yeah, yeah. It all goes right out to sea. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And I think in 2014, California voted they want to build more reservoirs, they want to build more dams, and they set aside money to do that. And I know Gavin Newsom has used that money to blow up dams. If you guys heard of the Klamath dams up Northern California, way in Northern California, he used money from those earmarked funds to take these dams
Yeah.
out. So yeah, it's just
That
insane.
really makes me wonder, just what you just said, that is an example of the problem of partnering with the ENGOs and the power that they have over these political moves, right? And I think that's the
Completely.
danger of really a public-private partnership, even if it's not or determined to be a public-private partnership. That is exactly how it rolls out. And we
Exactly.
have to really be careful in the West because they're coming for, people don't understand that how valuable water is in the West. And that those water rights are private property, just like your land and your gun or whatever else. And that's really what the NGOs are coming after. So that is super scary to me.
Totally. You have, Shad, you have experience with the Nature Conservancy, right? I think
Mhm.
I've talked to you about that before. Yeah, so that was another, the guy that we've kind of been working with, one of the members of our group is Cloverdale Mayor Todd Lands in Sonoma County, and he's met with directly with Chuck Bonham, who's the head of California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and he came from one of these groups. I think it was Cal Trout. Um, and he's been kind of acknowledging through all this, yeah, you guys are going to lose your water and we'll have to earmark some money for you, whatever, kind of keeping everybody happy, not committing. Just came out, he's now leaving CDFW and going to Nature
Nature
Conservancy. So
Conservancy.
yeah,
Yeah.
straight
They
from
all
one group to the next,
No, they all trade. They all trade help all the time. They go from internal to politics and back. I mean, we've seen that even in the beef industry, where the people leading the charge on the Sustainable Development Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef have never been out of the global corporate system or the college and university system, and they all trade back and forth all the time and have really no real world experience in production of any kind, right? They're just self-selected rule makers is all they are.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like this little circle of people that never touch grass, literally,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
get out and see what
I
they're
always,
talking about.
I mean, I know this sounds mean, but when I was on the Glenn Beck program, we were talking about this elitism that we're talking about now, and I said, the thing about it is none of these people could do the simplest things in life. They couldn't change a flat
Yeah,
tire. They couldn't grow their own food, but they're telling us how we have to do it under the guise of climate change or whatever their ideology is.
right. Exactly. And it is like this total disconnect between the people who make the rules and people who have to suffer and live under
Mhm.
them. I mean, even in Northern California, there's a big difference if you drive Mendocino County, where this dam is, to Marin County, a few hours south, where Gavin Newsom's vineyard is. They were recently talking about flooding out 5 ranches to build a new dam called the Sula Julie in Marin County. So you've got, in Marin County, they're flooding out these ranchers so that the vineyards and the wealthy people in these Bay Area communities have water. When up north, they dry up all these dams
Yeah.
or all these ranches because they're taking out their water. It's just all about who has the most money. And nobody's talking about taking out Hetch Hetchy. That supplies San Francisco. So nobody's talking about cutting out Hetch Hetchy, which supplies these wealthy communities in the governor's
Sure.
mansion. But if you're in a rural town, if you're a rancher, those are the dams that hurt the fish. Never mind that the salmon have to swim through the San Francisco Bay, which is flooded with sewage because they can't take care of, their own bay in the most elite liberal city in America. How are salmon supposed to swim through that to get to these little rivers upstream? Ranchers certainly aren't affected. It's just a total myth that they're affecting the salmon.
Oh,
That's not
absolutely.
what's going on. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it really is, if you look at all of Newsom's policies, as we're talking about this, is what's coming into my head. It's just like, it's like an attack on rural agriculture people, right? And Shad mentioned this land back movement. That's kind of on our list of something to get to. And you had reported also he wanted to give land based on race and gender, like just
Mhm.
give people land. Do you want to go into that a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, he had this task force that he appointed that he wanted them to come up with some plan for agricultural land equity. And their suggested draft document that they came out with, it's not final, but the one that they came out with earlier this year that I feel like nobody paid any attention to is just outrageous. It was saying, well, let's start buying up this land that, by the way, is going to run fallow because of our water laws, and especially in the Central Valley. They said in the document, because of, I think it's Sigma is the law out here that limits the amount of water that these farms and ranches can use. There's going to be a lot of farmland, 1,000,000 acres or so, they're estimating, that's going to run fallow because of these regulations. We should buy it up and then redistribute it to, privileged
Hmm.
protected groups, which means whatever group they have in mind. They say, veteran groups or low income, whatever. But I think it's largely racial. And that's how most people have interpreted it. And that's how most people who are pro the plan interpreted it. So just more of the same reparations, basically. But in terms of farmland,
And,
insane.
and the state was going to buy that? That's
Yeah,
how
the
they
state
would
want that
obtain
was
the
their
land?
plan. Yeah, so confiscate farmland because these regulations make it unusable, and then redistribute it to whoever they want to have farmland, which
You're right.
is, yeah. And then we're not a slave state, California. He's passionate about reparations because he wants to run for president, and
Hmm.
he's got to win a primary in South Carolina.
Yeah.
If you really want to worry about California's history, you'd probably look at some of the tribes up north and their history there, which is actually pretty dark. But he's got to appeal to the nation because he wants to
Yeah.
run for president, and
Which,
he's just a slime ball.
like, as you're talking too, it kind of, California is a great representation of why the Electoral College exists to me, right? Because you
Yeah.
guys in that state can, I mean, he feels like he can do whatever he wants to rural America, right? The
Hmm.
low populated
Yes.
areas, right? Where as a
Yep.
president, you have to pay some attention to those areas. And we keep seeing every election that doesn't go the right way, somebody's right way. They come out and say, oh, the Electoral College is so stupid. But it's like, that's what California needs, right? Like you need an
A
electoral
hundred
college to
percent.
give representation to some, like your community where they're going to lose these dams and stuff, but there is not a
A
care
hundred
in the
percent.
world. Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
something
exactly.
something people don't talk about is that California is our first or second largest agricultural producing state in the union, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're out here and you think Texas is big, California is just as big as Texas, and they have such a diverse agriculture community, more diverse than any other state, because of the change in terrain and locations. But I often wonder about, when we're talking reparations and these land grabs. Ooh, I heard him.
Oh, you did. Oh, darn. I was hoping
Is
you
that
wouldn't hear.
him?
Yeah. We
I
love
love
hearing
it.
it.
Looking at
That's
my
great.
husband.
I love it. But
That'll take care of him.
the thing about it is that these people who think it's going to benefit them, and I'm talking about the
Yeah.
citizens and the receivers of the reparations, it's not benefiting them. They are using
No.
them as pawns to take control of it. And that's, I think, one of the messages we have to get over in terms of,
Yeah.
this march to collectivism. We've seen it in South Africa. We've seen it in the European Union. We're seeing it in New York now. It's all just
Oh my
crazy.
gosh. Totally. Totally. Yeah, that mayor in New York that said we're not built, or we're rejecting
Yeah.
rugged individualism for the
Yeah.
warmth of collectivism.
Oh, it's
Man,
so warm. So warm.
it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
warm and cozy.
All right.
Soviet Union, yeah.
Uh,
Famously. A lovely
yes.
place to be.
Right. But to get back to, I guess, Brooke Rollins, you met her
Yeah.
face to face. Everyone that we've talked to says, she's a genuine, real deal. Is that how you came across away from that deal?
Yeah. That was my read. I mean, she's just so lovely. She's a very nice person. I mean, you guys know her, you talked to her, but
For
that was
sure.
my opinion. I thought she was just
Hmm.
such a lovely
Yeah.
person, but she's kind of a bulldog too, She's not just a really nice, friendly advocate for agriculture, which is part of what the USDA secretary does. You're going to pardon the turkeys and, kiss babies and go out and visit farm stuff. But she's really taken on these issues. Like, I think she's kind of, I was thinking about it. I think she's pretty underrated. I don't hear her talked about as much. Obviously, people are disconnected from ag. That's the whole issue.
Hmm.
But she's taken on a lot of these fights that, I thought maybe Doug Burgum would be our advocate or what. I'm not saying that he hasn't been, but she will just go after these stories, and she's done it over and over again, gone out of her way to, like you were talking about, Chad. She's writing to the state of Washington, suggesting that she might withhold federal funding if they don't stop persecuting this minor ranching family nobody was talking about. She's the one
Right.
who got the mods pardoned and made a big press conference out of it, and could
Yeah.
not have been more explicit. So,
And that's what was interesting. I felt like in our interview, she talked about her
yeah.
her main, like she told Chad it was her love language when he started talking property rights. Like she had went to
That's
school for
cool.
that,
Yeah.
to be a property rights attorney and all that stuff.
No, I don't know who's behind her all the way to USDA, but I do know in my mind that she is a freedom maker, and I like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I like your dichotomy, freedom maker, freedom taker.
Yeah.
That's the choice we have
yeah.
to make, Keely.
Yeah,
Did she get
exactly.
to
Yeah.
did she
One or
get
the
to meet
other.
the baby? Did you have the
No,
baby with you?
I left him. I last minute, I left him with Nick. It's a bad flu season. Everybody scares you. They're like, don't
Oh,
take your
yeah.
baby out, whatever. But
Well,
that would have
I
been neat.
felt yeah, and I felt like one of the coolest. Like, so she posted pictures. I can't remember what picture it was, but you and your dad were there on stage, and you could just.
Yeah.
That was a proud. I zoomed in on his face. I was like, "That is the proudest dad." Like that was just such a proud dad look. Like, And for those who
Oh,
haven't
yeah,
watched,
he was.
he's a veterinarian in that neighborhood, right? Like he's worked with
Yep.
all those ranches that are losing, and now his daughter's going in there and saving them.
Mm.
Right. So I
Yeah,
told him when I talked to him, I said, they need once you get them dams saved, they need to put a statue of you up on top of it.
For
Right.
no
sure.
way. I'm gonna get tall poppy, and nobody in my hometown's gonna like me anymore. They're gonna be like, who is this kid? Too big for britches. No, he's the best. He knows more about this than anybody. I always fact check and ask him questions, and I just think, you know how it is. It's like you're just a small town. You don't think anybody will listen to you, and I made videos talking about it, but I always knew, I'm like, nobody wants to hear me talk about it. We got to get to the farmers, these guys that are really impacted. Those are the
Yeah.
videos that will pop off. And sure enough, it's like
Yeah.
I can think of all of them. All of my neighbors I've known my whole life who lost their water. My dad filmed a lot of those. He would just take his phone
Oh,
and go over to the
really?
neighbor's house. Yeah, and he'd
That's
send me all
cool.
of them, just cut it together. So, yeah, he loves that town. He's from the Central Valley, and he always just wanted to live where there were mountains. So he moved out there with my mom after vet school, and he just loves that place. That's his like heart and soul, is just living in those beautiful mountains. And I think they all felt pretty hopeless. And it's just this tiny town. And we're kind of at the center of it all, because all the other towns around us, they're going to feel the effects. But this town is where the dams are. We're right there. So it's just a providential God thing that, for whatever reason, I'm able to have a social platform of whatever size, and I'm from this town. Otherwise, nobody was talking about it really. Even our local papers barely talking about it. A lot of
Right.
them are owned by friends of Newsom, actually. But yeah, all God's providence in that. And I don't know that anything will come of it, because it is quite an uphill fight. But at least people know, and that's
Right.
comforting to me. Is we're not just going to disappear in the night without anybody
Exactly.
Mhm.
hearing what happened.
They
Yeah.
can't say you didn't try in the end
Right.
because you did.
Exactly.
But see,
Yeah.
and pieces are falling. Like you talk about that, like, oh, it just you happen to live it. But then also, like, Farm Bureau Convention happens to be in Los Angeles, and that makes it
Yep.
easy for that press conference and everything that happened in the last couple of weeks to
Yep.
happen, I guess. Were you
Totally.
able to enjoy the convention at all, or did you take that in at all, or
I didn't. I showed
yeah,
up, and because I'm here in Southern California, so I could drive, and then I
yeah,
went home to Cade. I
right,
was already getting a little anxious to leave him, so I didn't
yeah,
get to
Yeah.
hang out too long. But maybe next time. Probably won't be back in Anaheim for a while. I think Tim Tebow is speaking. Missed
oh,
that.
yeah,
I
That
don't
would
know
be a
why,
great one.
but
yeah, I
yeah,
know.
he's great. I was like curious what the connection was, but I didn't get to hear it.
Hmm. Well, cool. Yeah, I guess congratulations on everything. We're gonna keep
Thank
pushing,
you.
keep getting this news out there. Everybody follow American Unwon, right?
Thank you, Jim.
America Unwon.
America
America on one.
Unwon.
Keep saying it
Should
wrong.
I change that? Too many ends.
I
Everybody reads
know.
American on one. I'm like, maybe I need to just go
Yeah.
on one or something. It's too many
Well,
ends.
Google it, and that's what'll come up, right?
Yeah,
More than
exactly.
likely,
Run a
I'm
Google,
guessing. So,
Well, it's been really
hopefully.
fun. Just for me, Jim and I have known each other for a while now, and he asked me to come on to his show, but I've been in the fight for a long time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you have.
and so it's really heartening to know that, like I told Jim, I'm like, Keely's out there all by herself on the West Coast. We need to get out. We need to help her.
Oh,
And then there's a few of us in the center of the country, and then there's one or two guys out on the eastern part of the country that understand the importance of these rural issues and what the effect that they have, not only on your family, but your community, and then that flows down into our urban friends, and so it's important, and a lot of people, Keely, have said, why are you doing this? And I'm like, if not me, then who? Who's going to do it? And I feel this, and I know Jim's the same way, because we both feel this huge responsibility that we owe something to our kids, right? That
mhm.
we have these little kids coming up, and so I appreciate you, and Jim and I have talked about flying out there and seeing Dr. Brazil, because we both are intrigued by him
Yes.
for sure.
yeah,
Oh,
he's
you got to
So
do that.
getting to be famous too with all your videos but it's neat to see him because you can tell he's kind of he's had 8 kids, right? He
yeah,
is kind of a
Yep.
teacher, and
Yep.
he has
I
those
Oh,
agree.
videos
yeah.
where
Yep.
he's doing different things with cattle, and yeah, so all that
Yeah.
stuff
He
all
always,
falls.
he's totally a teacher, and he's got the program ranch vision. That's like his second wind in his career. He's running to kind of help ranchers, and that's just his whole heart. This morning he was teaching a class with Ranch Vision virtually at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, their beef management class, I think.
Oh,
Wow.
So
cool.
he loves that. Like he just, and I make him make these videos. I'm like, people don't know how to do this stuff. They don't know how to age a horse or, give an
Hmm.
No.
epidural to a cow. So,
Yeah.
as long as TikTok and Instagram don't kick me off for showing medical procedures. I mean, he's kind of, I think it's a role that people, and same with you guys. I mean, you're truly like the shining example of this in the Western industry. I just admire you both so much. You've been doing this forever. And it's just so heartening to see that the administration is listening to you, because you're who they should be listening to. So that it gives me a lot of hope to see you in DC, Shad, and to see what you guys are doing.
It's all exciting because, for a while you're by yourself. From about 1999 to 2010, there was just a very handful of us that were fighting property rights in Colorado, big time stuff. And so it's just really exciting, and it takes all of us, right? It's not just me crazy. It's all of us crazy that have to do it together. So
yeah,
right on.
Yeah,
and you're young.
At least,
that's the rare part, right?
Amen. That's right.
Yeah, well, I'm in good company. There's not a lot of us, but at least it's a good group. So
and I feel like the more young people that see it, the more that get involved. Like, it's definitely a growing group too, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like things are shifting a little bit. More people are paying attention to this stuff, and whatever runway we have with the administration or what's in the future in politics, at least we have a moment where people are listening, and we got to take advantage of it.
Glorious
Who knows what
moment.
things will change? Yes, it is. It's really exciting. Big time.
All right. Well, we'll keep at it. Go to lonesomelands.com, click on support, AmericaUnwon.com, and Ranch Vision, right? If you're not familiar with Ranch Vision, go there. Is that .com?
Ranchvision.io.
I knew it was one of the new fancy ones, but
the newfangled ones, yeah.
Thank
you guys. You're the best. Appreciate
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.